Hello, everyone. Charles Watts here. Welcome back to Inside Arsenal. It is Friday. The weekend is very nearly here. Arsenal's big return to action in the Premier League, of course, on Sunday. So still a couple of days to wait until that one. Mikel Arteta will be speaking a little bit later on today at London Colney in his pre-match press conference. Ahead of the Liverpool game, we'll get the latest injury news, hopefully from him, team news, maybe a little bit of an indication of where the likes of Bukayo Saka and Jurriën Timber are in terms of their recovery and possible return, and also maybe a little bit of an update on Ricardo Calafiori, as I spoke about yesterday in the show we did with James Benge inside Arsenal Extra Time. The reports from Italy are that it is nothing too serious, and he will be out, of course, but only for a matter of weeks rather than a real long-term injury, which I think we all feared when we saw the first couple of replays of that incident. So we'll see what Mikel Arteta has to say about that a little bit later on. But we're going to spend this morning's show talking about the Liverpool game. Got lots of questions and comments from you guys in terms of who should potentially play. A lot of it is focused on the defence. I think the fullback decision that Mikel Arteta has got, if Jurriën Timber is not fit, is going to be a really interesting one in terms of who he plays at right back, who he plays at centre back, of course, without William Saliba. If he moves Ben White over there, then he's got a right back decision to make. He's got a left back decision to make with no Ricardo Calafiori. Not ideal when you're going up against the attacking threat that Liverpool possess, of course. So lots of you have been getting in touch talking about that. We'll spend some time having a little bit of a conversation about that, and then a little bit other bits and pieces to go get stuck into as well in the show. So as I said, lots of the comments are revolving around the defence and the fullbacks. As C. Lord here has got in touch and says, if Calafiori and Timber are out, what is your defence on Sunday, Charles? Seems the most likely options are left to right, MLS, Gabriel, Kivior and White, or Kivior, Gabriel, White and Partey. Think I'd go for the first over the second personally, mostly because I don't like Partey against quick winners and do like his defending and control in midfield recently. What do you think? Yeah, it's a really big decision. And of course, this all revolves around Jurriën Timber. If Jurriën Timber's fit, then that solves a massive, massive headache for Mikel Arteta, because you can either play Jurriën Timber next to Gabriel at the heart of the defence, like we saw in pre-season at times, and then you keep Ben White at right back, and then you've only really got a decision to make when it comes to the left back spot, whether that be Kivior, MLS, Zinchenko. Would have to wait and see. But if there's no Jurriën Timber, of course, then that does represent a real difficult issue for Mikel Arteta to try and solve. And it's going to be a really key decision, I think, when you look at the threat that Liverpool possess down the flanks. You've got Mo Salah running down one. You've got probably Luis Diaz running down the other. So who do you play? Obviously, as C. Lord here points out, you've got different options at left back. Of course, you've got Miles Lewis-Skelly, who came on in the Champions League in midweek when Calafiori went off. But then you've also got Kivior and Zinchenko, who are both left on the bench in that Champions League game. Far more experienced players than Miles Lewis-Skelly. But it was very interesting to note that it was Lewis-Skelly that Mikel Arteta turned to during the Champions League game. And then at right back, if there's no Jurriën Timber, you would think that probably Ben White might well move into the central areas, and then you keep, and then you might have to move Thomas Partey back to right back, which is something we've seen before. My personal opinion on it, I don't really want to see Thomas Partey move to right back, I have to say. I think he's done it well the last couple of times we saw it. I think he did perfectly fine in the second half in midweek. I thought in the league game, was it against Southampton when he played there? I thought he played perfectly well in that role. But my big issue with playing Thomas Partey at right back, he's not a right back, obviously. And when you're going up against the likes of Luis Diaz, I would be very, very worried about Thomas Partey's ability to get back and chase Luis Diaz if he gets the ball behind him, which you would imagine Liverpool certainly target that area. But more importantly than that, almost, is that, for my mind, Thomas Partey is Arsenal's best midfielder at the moment. He's the most informed midfielder they've got. He's playing really, really well. You've got Declan Rice, who's far, far, far from his best form at the moment and has been struggling for consistency all season as he tries to get himself back up to speed. You've got Marino, who's come in, who's struggling for pace at the moment and, again, getting up to speed of his new club. Jorginho, obviously, is there as well, but no one is in as good a form as Thomas Partey. You just look back in the midweek game, how good he was in that first half when he was playing in that role. When you took him out and moved him to right back in the second half, I think Arsenal suffered as a result. So I don't think Partey to right back is the best option for me. I just think it limits you defensively a little bit, maybe exposes you defensively a little bit, but it also really limits you in midfield at the moment. So I'm not sure that's the option. I've got a feeling that might be what Mikel Arteta does, unfortunately, but it's not really, it's not the one that I think I'd go for. I think personally for me, I would probably. It's a tough one. I mean, it is a tough one. Arteta's in a really difficult situation when it comes to this. I think I would probably stick with Ben White at right back, and I would play Kivior next to Gabriel. I think that is probably what I would go for, and then I'd have Zinchenko at left back. Even saying that, I'm doubting myself, but I think that's probably what I'd go for. Like I said, I just don't like the idea of Partey at right back. And so I think if you can keep White there, at least you've got a very, very experienced player who knows his job really, really well. And I know Kivior struggled. Well, he made the mistake against Bournemouth. I don't think he'd struggled up to that point against Bournemouth, but then he made the back pass mistake against Bournemouth, obviously. So whether his confidence will be impacted by that or not. But even though it'd be two left-footed centre-backs playing next to each other, I think I would still probably prefer that than moving Ben White across and then exposing that right-back area. So I think that's what I'd go for. And in terms of the left-back, I just think I really like Lewis Skelly, but I would worry about Lewis Skelly up against Mo Salah. And look, I worry about Zinchenko up against Mo Salah, but he's played there against him. He started the last couple of league games against him, both of them last season. He's a very experienced player, Zinchenko. I just think he might have a little bit more nous in that situation against arguably the best right winger in the Premier League. So I think that's what I'd go for. It's a long-winded way of saying it. I think it'll be, if there's no Jurriën Timber, of course, I think I'll probably go Zinchenko, Gabriel, Kivior, White. I think that's what I would go for. So there you go. There's my answer, C-Lord. Thank you very much for getting in touch in that. And as I was saying, the Partey one's interesting, and because lots of people have been getting in touch talking about this, and people have got different opinions on it. I mean, I've given my opinion why I don't think I would want to see him at right back for this game. If he does play at right back, obviously you just move Ben White inside, have that good centre-back partnership going with Gabriel, and then do whatever you want to do at left back. But as lots of you have been getting in touch, Jay says, I think it might be Jorginho and Rice, and then Partey at right back. John Scarrett says, I want to keep White on the right because he's a runner up our side. If Partey plays there, we have to go down the left, which opens up the left a bit for Salah. We also then have White running through midfield and Partey unable to do what he does in midfield. It's not our system and it's not ideal for these players. Rice is good when he gets back, but most of the time I think he is winning the ball back by running in from behind the player with it. I don't think he's good when facing players like Salah. He could be left in their dust if used as a centre-back. I want to keep outfield progressive whilst also keeping as solid defensive we can with the available players. So I'd go for White, Timber, Gabriel, Kivior. You'd go for Timber, Gabriel, Kivior, and White being the only. Oh, sorry. You go for White, Timber, Gabriel, and Kivior, with White being the only one to go on the runs. The rest can stay back and lock up shop. Fazif says White, Rice, Gabby, and Kivior. Partey is too informed to move to right back. Nazai says, for me, Timber has to play centre back in Saliba's absence. No need to change and play White at centre back. I understand the Diaz versus Timber, but White can hold his own against Diaz. For me, I'd play Zinchenko at left back. If we're totally honest, since Calafiori has come in, we haven't been solid anyway, and he hasn't been the greatest defensively. I think if we're going to play an inverted fullback from the left, then Zinchenko is the best player to do it. He's an offensive weapon and creativity is what we've been missing from our side. We have become too obsessed with being solid, and that has impacted our attacking play. So that's lots of you getting in touch. There was plenty others as well getting in touch to say what you would do for this one in defence. It's definitely, I mean, just listen to what we've been talking about already in this first 9 minutes of this show, and the different options and the people are going to have to play out of position, whatever happens at the weekend. Just says it is not an ideal situation for Arsenal, especially when you're playing a team like Liverpool. It's going to be really, really difficult. Arteta's going to have to try and find a solution that works. Obviously, Jurriën Timber is so key. If he's fit, if they've been basically wrapping him up in cotton wool for this game, maybe when Saliba got sent off at the weekend, they thought, you know what, we are not taking any risk with Jurriën Timber for the midweek game against Shakhtar. We're just letting him focus on getting ready for Liverpool. I hope that is the case. We'll see what Mikel Arteta says a little bit later on in his press conference. But if he is fit, it solves so many problems, because you can just slot him in at centre-back alongside Gabriel, or you can just move White in alongside Gabriel and play Timber over there, and that doesn't disrupt the midfield by having to move Thomas Partey. It would be so key. But if he's out, as well as Calafiori, then yeah, the fullback decision is going to be absolutely right, or getting it right is going to be key to Arsenal potentially winning this game. Right, moving on. Some news from Arsenal. James King is coming in as the new director of football operations. Now, some of you might well know James King. He has worked at Arsenal before. He left in 2022. He spent about 6 years there. before, and he left to go to the PFA. He's been working there as a general counsel, but he's coming back to become director of football operations, and he's going to start next month. That was the role, obviously, that was held by Richard Garlick before. Richard Garlick was promoted to managing director when Vinay left. So a bit of a restructuring in the sort of behind the scenes world at Arsenal. King's very, very popular. Like I said, he spent a good amount of years there. I think it was 6 years until 2022, joined in 2016. Been working at sort of legal team, started off there and then moved into the football operations. So he's well known at the club. He's got good relationships at the club. He's worked before on first team, academy, women's levels and systems at the club, so he knows all of that, and he's going to be coming in and joining the football directors team, which is football operations team, which is going to be a very, very good and important role for Arsenal, because an awful lot gets done in that area. It's key to everything, like contracts, transfers, everything like that, and you want that area of the club to operate very, very smoothly. So the fact that King is coming back, having got some really good experience at the PFA over the last couple of years, and he knows everyone, hopefully that will do the club a lot of good when it comes to that department, because we all know that is a very, very key department to operate in. So James King returning to Arsenal starts next month in that new role of his. Right, moving on to what you guys have been saying. Dr. Malik says dropping Trossard out of Liverpool game should be out of the question. Like you said, having that partnership with Havertz is the only thing left since Odegaard and potentially Saka are out. Not to mention he really likes playing against Liverpool and has a really good goal scoring record against them. Yeah, I would keep Trossard in for this game, I have to say. I think he is treading a fine line in terms of potentially losing his place in the starting 11. He's not in great form. He's been doing some pretty stupid things at times with the ball, as William Saliba will justify last week against Bournemouth. But I do think that partnership with Havertz, if you keep it going, it does work. It has worked. They know each other well, and he is still a very, very good finisher. Take the penalty out of it in midweek, he is still Arsenal's best finisher in real sort of clutch big moments. You kind of want a chance to fall to Trossard more than anyone else. So I'd be keeping him in for this game, I have to say, and just hoping he can find a little bit more form and consistency that he's potentially shown in recent weeks. So I agree with you there, Dr. Malik. Chicken Dippers has got in touch and says, have you heard the news that Isak contract talks have stalled? He wants Champions League football. This is our chance. We must sign him in January. No question. What's your take? It's as easy as that. Is it just go out and sign Alexander Isak in January? I know what you mean. And yes, I have heard the news. Obviously, it's been reported this morning. It's all over the back page of the Daily Mail. I think it was Craig Hope's story. He's very well connected up in Newcastle in the northeast. The contract talks with Alexander Isak and Newcastle have basically stopped, and they've stalled, and that he wants Champions League football, and that could open the door to Arsenal, who we know have got a long-standing interest in Alexander Isak. So yes, you all know my thoughts on Isak. I would love him at Arsenal. I think he's absolutely perfect for this team. But look, he's got although these contract talks have stalled, he's still got a contract until 2028 at Newcastle. So they are in no pressure to sell. There's, that it will still take huge amounts of money. I can't see any way, even with this going on, that they would let him go in January. It would take a monumental offer that I just don't see Arsenal having the money to be able to tempt them into doing business in January. I think it's much more likely if something does happen with Alexander Isak and Newcastle do decide to cash in on him because he's not going to extend his stay and sign a new long-term contract, then it will probably be something for the summer. I just don't see it happening in January. So when you say no questions, there's definitely a lot of questions, because it's not a case of us just going in Championship manager style and getting a deal over the line. It's finding the sort of money that Newcastle would be tempted to deal with. And I think that would be a real, real struggle halfway through what's a big, big season for them. John Scarrett has been in touch here. Says on Sterling, just look at when Havertz joined us. He was in the doldrums. Confidence was shot, but we transformed him. Same with Xhaka before that. Sterling is a great player. Arteta thinks he can do a Havertz Xhaka. We need to give him more time and get behind him when he plays, as that will help him make the transformation happen. I've not given up on Sterling or Jesus for that matter. They could be the ones on form later this year. Yeah, I mean, it's far too early to give up on Raheem Sterling. I don't think the early signs have been fantastic, but you're very correct to point out that everyone was saying this about Kai Havertz a year ago, and then look at the transformation he's had. So I just think we're Sterling, he needs to get up to speed. He needs to learn how you play for Arsenal, how much you have to work, how much you have to press, not stop running. He needs to learn all of that. And hopefully he can, and hopefully he can still have a big impact over maybe the second half of the season. But he certainly needs to improve and play a lot better than he's been performing so far. That was not a good substitute appearance in midweek. when given his chance. I can't imagine he'll be playing this weekend. He'll get a chance from the start, you would think, against Preston in next midweek. Hopefully he can take that as well and get him and kick himself on a little bit. So yeah, far too early to rule him out, of course. And I can see lots of people are already sort of thinking, nah, he's not going to be great. It's going to be a poor signing. He's not going to contribute. I've seen the comments. It's just down to Sterling to turn that around now and show that he can turn it around and that he can make an impact here at Arsenal. So hopefully, fingers crossed, he can do that. Chris says, I do have a question. Who pays the wages of players who are injured on international duty? The Odegaard wage bill would run into millions alone. You're correct, it would. There is a compensation package with FIFA that clubs can apply for FIFA for compensation for wages of players get injured on international duty. I don't know the exact percentage of what those wages are that are covered by FIFA, but there is a compensation package available, and I'm sure that Arsenal will be 100% dipping into that with this Martin Odegaard absence, but I'm not sure the exact thing. So Arsenal will be paying Odegaard, but they can then claim compensation through FIFA for the time he's missed while because of picking up an injury on international duty. But I'm not sure the exact percentage of what those wages would be. So yeah, that's as good as answer I can give you right now, Chris. And that's it from me, everyone. Thank you very much for watching and for listening. Of course, I'll be back later on, maybe after the press conference, to go over what Mikel Arteta has had to say. Until then, enjoy a very good Friday. I'm sure you will. Nearly at the weekend. Speak to you soon, everyone. Bye-bye.